Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Saturday, January 17th, 2026, and you are listening/watching The Rundown, episode 16, my sometimes weekly podcast where I talk about video games and anime and general pop culture nonsense and try to catch you up on the news of various different controversies that may have happened over the past week that people were talking about. As always, I'm your host, Corrupt Ronin. And don't forget that if you enjoy the show or you want to help support, whether monetary means or just by helping support and get the word out about the show, the best way to do so for that is through liking the video and subscribing to the channel and perhaps, hitting the donate button on some of the description stuff. Or if you want to subscribe on Patreon, you can do that. I also have a Discord for those who want to hop in and talk about stuff there as well. That being said, today's topics, as you can see in the title, we're going to be talking about the hijacking of the anime Gachiakuta and what that means or what that entails, and I'll get into that a little bit at some point during today's show. Also, I'm going to briefly talk about some of the stuff that happened with Brown Dust 2, especially after the whole censorship controversy that happened last week, and how quickly that turned around literally after I ended the show last week talking about this very subject. But that kind of goes to show the power of the whales when it comes to the gacha game space. And lastly, I do want to talk a little bit about how there has been a general shrinkage of just the gaming industry as a whole and how that's starting to manifest in various ways throughout investments throughout the industry and kind of what that means going into the future and why I think this might be happening. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to our first topic, which, like I said, I'm going to briefly touch on the Brown Dust 2 stuff because it is quickly turned around and it's kind of falling out of the zeitgeist, but I do think it's important to talk about because it kind of paints a picture about stuff like this going into the future. So, roughly after I did the stream last week talking about this, it was merely hours after that before the company itself made an announcement they would be doing an emergency live stream to address the issues that people had about the game's censorship. Because what happened is that shortly after that happened, everybody started collaborating together. This was across all versions, the global version, the Japanese version, the Korean version. Like, everybody was very upset about these changes that were announced. So people started collaborating and coming together, and people were deleting their accounts. The whales were basically trying their best to refund all their purchases as best they could. And they were doing so to the extent that them refunding all their purchases would get their accounts banned. We had people literally sacrificing their accounts to send a message to the developers that this was unacceptable. So, as you would expect, they announced an emergency live stream addressing the issues. And the first thing they talked about, this was a 23-minute live stream where I believe it was the producer of the head of the studio was solo on the stream talking about it. You could tell this thing was hastily put together because there's barely anything being shown outside of text on a screen and him just sitting in a corner with a microphone talking about it. You could tell that this thing was put together very quickly to address the issues. But anyways, the first thing that came out during this live stream to address the issues that were going down, make sure I got it on screen. There we go. Let's go over here. He announced right off the bat that there will be no changes to the character designs, basically walking back all the censorship claims that they were making at the time. So all the stuff they were talking about, because people kept making assumptions that it was just about the lolly characters. And the reality is that it wasn't just about that. They weren't just censoring them, they were also removing many games and characters that were of legal age by every intent and every statement in the game itself of legal age. They were censoring them too. And the problem with censorship is that it never stops at what they claim it's going to be. It always ends up going further. It's like a virus. It always spreads. The more they can get away with, the more it's going to continue. And people had an issue with that, and they wanted to nip this shit in the bud before it got out of hand, which is why the people were so upset about this in the first place. So they walked back the censorship claims, and he actually talked about, because the whole stream itself was, like, obviously the company that makes Brown Dust 2 is a Korean company. So Korean being their native language, people had to translate what he was saying during the live stream. And I actually have some of the salient points he made during this that I think were kind of important about what is effectively an apology from the company about why they were doing this and how they're moving forward into the future. But I talked a bit about how this whole thing kind of damaged trust between the company or the developers and the consumers themselves. So I can pull that up real quick. Give me just a sec. Operating on a limited pair of windows here for the stream, unfortunately. But anyways, so for those that translated it, they specifically say, this is the salient points of it. Got to make it bigger on this side. There we go. Okay. Says, conveying such an important matter through hastily prepared text announcement was clearly my fault, and it was a very, very foolish action. It shook the trust we had built through illustrations in an instant and left doubt over every future release, making people wonder whether it too would be censored. Not had been, would be censored. It's moving into the future. I consider this my most painful mistake. The person who ultimately decides the service policy for Brown Dust 2 is me. There is no hidden force above me, nor any external authority giving orders. I sincerely apologize for the confusion and disappointment this incident has caused, and I will strive to make choices that I will not be ashamed of before you in the future. I'm sorry, and thank you. After which he then decided he would stand up and take a bow in his form of apology, bonking his head on the laptop in front of him a little bit in the process. And people were like, yeah, this is kind of a public humiliation stream at this point. But I do respect the idea of this guy coming out in defense. Well, not defense, but just to be the whipping boy in front of the public about the decisions, the poor decisions they made about this subject entirely. Like, I can't understand how they wouldn't have seen this coming, especially when your game is built on the idea of fan service in the first place. And then suddenly you're like, sorry, guys, this game we built around fan service, we're going to take away the fan service part. Because like I said last week, from what I understand, this is from somebody who's on the outside looking in, because I don't play Brown Dust. It's just not my kind of game. People have said that the game, when it first launched, it wasn't quite as fan servicey as it is right now. The problem is that it wasn't doing that well at the time, and it was only when they started leaning into the fan servicey stuff that the game started to really take off. And I believe it was last month, December, where they had one of their best months of the 2025 year, basically, in terms of revenue, because of the costumes they released for certain characters. So it's clear that the fan service stuff is definitely putting them on the map. And when the whole thing that came out about them trying to get the game on Steam and then Steam rejecting it and them choosing not to put the game on Steam, people had assumed that the reason why they chose not to do it or to cancel the Steam release was because they didn't want to censor the game and completely change the game's identity to get it on the platform. And it was weird for them to say that and then turn around and do this literally a month after that. So it just kind of seemed like a real stab in the back for a lot of people. And it's understandably so, because a lot of these gacha games, they live and die based off of the whales that shell out money for them. The majority of people that play these free-to-play games, these gacha games, whatever it might be, the majority of them never spend any money or spend very little money. So a lot of the time, rather most of the time, these games are held up by the whales spending money on them the most. There aren't as many whales as there are regular everyday players that don't spend the money, but the whales who do spend money spend a lot of fucking money. So when you have those people literally canceling their accounts and demanding mass refunds, you can imagine how that money you're making dries up real fast. So once all this went down, they issued an apology, and the costumes they had planned, or one of the important costumes they had planned for this content update, they gave away for free as an apology. And from what I understand, people really like this, whatever this costume is they released. I've seen it. And yeah, I can't show you that shit on stream. It's definitely not stream friendly. It's some TOS shit. I can't show that on stream. It's intense. Let's put it that way. But yeah, they released that stuff for free as an apology. But my thing is that a lot of people are probably seeing this as them making good on that. And I know some folks will probably write this off as, okay, they apologize, we're good going into the future. My thing is, as a warning, is that it's not this update and this content you should be looking at in terms of the direction of the game going into the future. It's what happens next. Because this content, I'm sure, was already done before they made the announcement of censorship in the first place. So what we got was what they were going to release in the first place. What happens next is the content that is designed from the ground up with this new direction in mind. They already understand that people are going to be looking at them under a microscope in terms of censorship in future content, but that may not deter them. That may not deter them from doing that for future content, especially if they're hoping that people forget by that time. So it's really a down to whether or not they are really committed to what they said they're going to do this time around. And I'm sure some folks don't trust them, because from what I've heard from some folks that have played this game for a long time and dealt with this company for a long time, is that they kind of have a history of lying. So you'll have to wait and see how things go in the future. But I would say to keep an eye out for future content, not this content, to determine whether or not they're sticking to their guns and making good on the mistakes they made here going into the future. But respect to them for having somebody come out there and apologize live, put their face to the public and say, listen, we fucked up. We're sorry. I regret the decisions I made. I know we're going to look under a microscope heavily from this point on, but we'll make good on that in the future. And they gave away a lot of free stuff as an apology, including the costume, which I imagine if they hadn't done this and released this new costume as it is, for people to have to pay, they would have made a lot of money off of this. So they left a lot of money on the table in general by fucking this up as badly as they did. But we will see how things go from this point on. But that's really it about the whole Brown Dust 2 stuff. Like it was a matter of them making very poor decisions. People saying, well, this is unacceptable, especially for those of us who spent money on this. You're not going to censor our game after you told us you wouldn't do it. After you said you would rather the game die than change and censor its identity. And here you are trying to do exactly that. And a lot of people speculated that it was based off of a country that was requiring the censorship. A lot of people thought that it might have been China, for example. That was the reason why they were doing this, which I understand the suspicion about that, considering China has had some influence and stuff like that in gacha games in the past. I know I mentioned last week, I mentioned Genshin Impact, where China decided they would censor all the characters, and people believed that it was only going to be on the Chinese side of things. And it was for a moment until they just said, fuck it, we're just going to censor it across the board, and no one has a choice. And people were wondering if that was the case here, and they were asking, like, why don't you guys just open up a different client that has the censorship changes on it, and then send that client out for certain regions that require it? And no one knows why they didn't do that, but they're making the choice to do that now. So they intend to have two clients, one without the censorship and one with the censorship for regions and countries that require it, and then the one that's not censored for countries that don't care in general. But no one knows the exact country for the reason why they had to do this in the first place. They've been very skittish and shy about this, which is kind of the problem, is that the lack of communication about this in the first place is kind of what caused this to spiral out of control, where speculation got out ahead of them way too fast about what was going on. And that is definitely their fault for not being clear about what happened there. Like when stuff like this happens, if you don't get out in front of it to clarify and provide information, speculation is going to get out so far ahead of you and get so widely out of control that you will not be able to contain it. So they had to do something fast before they lost everything. I know I saw some posts of the whales that deleted their accounts being like, man, I feel like I kind of wasted my account by doing all this shit. They were just going to backtrack. But in my honest opinion, looking at this whole thing from the outside, I think if the whales that sacrificed their accounts hadn't done that en masse, I don't think they would have reversed the censorship changes as quickly as they did. So I don't think the people who sacrificed their accounts did it for nothing or did it in vain. I think that had they not made those sacrifices, we would not be here today talking about how they reversed the changes. So those sacrifices were not in vain. It just sucks to know that you had to sacrifice in the first place, because this whole thing should not have happened to begin with. But here we are. You didn't miss too much, Thomas. We're just getting started. This is the first news topic of the day. I got two more I got to get into today, so you didn't miss too much. Don't worry. You didn't miss too much. I got to pull up, man. I got a whole bunch of notes here. Typically write this stuff down on paper because I enjoy writing stuff on paper. But with that being said, we're gonna move on. How do I even talk about this next one? Shit, how do I even talk about this next one? This one might rile some feathers because of the topic at hand, but shit, man, it needs to be discussed because this stuff is ridiculous and just whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna get into it. So there is a real mental illness epidemic in general across the board, especially on social media, if you're on social media. And it's not just in the US or Western countries, it's worldwide. Mental health issues, there's a crisis going on right now. And I present to you the drama going on with the anime called Gachiakuta, which is I would say it's pretty popular right now, if anything, considering how people have been talking about it on social media and just the reactions and stuff like that. It is definitely one of the more popular animes that's come out in recent memory. And the controversy surrounding it right now is that one of the things that has kind of pushed me out of a lot of, or wanted to get involved with a lot of anime fan bases, is that you have these people that obsess over the characters in a show or an anime, for example, so heavily that they end up shipping characters that aren't being shipped, or they create these headcanons that they want everybody to accept that they pass off. And there was a point in time, because headcanons are not a new thing. Headcanons and fan canons are not a new thing. It's been around since forever. Like it doesn't just pertain to anime. It pertains to anything, that any story, series, whatever it might be, Japanese or Western, doesn't matter. It's always existed. But before the proliferation of social media and the internet, headcanons and fan canons were kind of made for specific circles, and they never really broke containment, so to speak. But nowadays, with the internet and social media, it is very easy for that stuff to break containment, find its way on social media, and find its way to the wrong kinds of people. What usually ends up is that the headcanons start becoming going from an innocent thing that people make up in their heads to something that the fans actually want to see happen in the show itself. And when it doesn't happen, in many cases, you get pissed off fans that are burning merchandise and sending death threats to the authors. Happens all the fucking time. So, how does this relate to Gachiakuta? Gonna pull this up because we're gonna start with Exhibit A. The first drama that broke out was that they were assuming that one of the popular characters by the name of Tamsi or Tomsy, depends on how you want to pronounce it. The headcanon had broken containment from a bunch of mentally ill people on the internet who just cannot seem to understand that there is a line you don't cross when it comes to headcanons and fan canons, but they do anyways. Under the impression that the character Tamsi is transgender. This headcanon had gotten so popular, broken containment so hard, that the author of the goddamn series herself had to come out and be like, people are out here claiming that this character is transgender, and that is not the case. You know it's bad when the authors catch a wind of this shit and they have to clarify it. And then the responses to it are like, oh, no, it's just innocent headcanon. Don't worry about it. We're sorry. No, it's just innocent headcanon. It's just, no, don't worry about it. Don't take it seriously. Headcanon is only innocent when it is done by people that are innocent. The people that make the headcanons and fan canons these days are anything but. Like I said, it goes from headcanon to proliferating and taking over entire communities to the point where they are now demanding that the characters appeal to their headcanon. The moment the character strays from that, the moment the story strays from that, the moment their ships don't actually happen, that's when the death threats start coming in. Because people don't know where the line is to not cross with this shit. It is only innocent when the people behind it are also innocent, which is not the case. But it gets worse. It doesn't just stop at the character. You had people assuming that the author herself was non-binary because of how she dressed and the name she used. They assumed that she was non-binary, to which she then had to come out and say, really? Even she was shocked by that. As the post says up here, it says, looks like the deranged fans of My Hero Academia invaded Gachiakuta. The author seems to be growing tired of the Western fan base lately. I don't know if that's actually the case. We're getting tired of the Western fan base, but I bet she's probably tired of having to deal with shit like this. There was also a stage play for Gachiakuta that happened, or it's supposed to be happening sometime this year, and in Japan, and they had announced the characters that were going to be part of that stage play. If I could pull that up, actually, I think I actually have that. Give me a sec. Pull up the article on that because they talked about that too. And she got into a bit of controversy about that as well because of apparent casting choices. Here we go. Got it. So this article comes from comicbook.com. And it says, Gachiakuta live action adaptation, which is the stage play, apologizes following racism allegations. And basically what happens is, it says Gachiakuta the stage recently shared a statement regarding racism allegations with characters like Corvus, Semiyu, and Jabber race swapped for the performance. Basically, a lot of the characters in the anime itself have various skin complexions in terms of like, I guess, like darkness and melanation, whatever you want to call it. And because of that, a lot of people assume that these characters are like various races. Some assume that they're black and stuff like that. But the stage play, however, the live action stage play, most of the characters that are playing these characters of darker skin complexion, they're all Japanese. So they want to accuse the company and the author of racism because they didn't hire actual black actors to play these characters instead. Which kind of blows my mind because I'm just like, the whole thing takes place in Japan. And while there definitely are black people in Japan, there's not that many black people in Japan to begin with. So I imagine it's not very easy to find black people to fill those roles, especially those that can act, when there's a limited supply in the first place. And the idea of trying to bring people in from across the world to do that is very expensive, especially when you're making something on a budget. So they had to clarify. They said the statement, they released a statement about it. They said the visual design of the characters and the expressive choices made in this production are not modeled after or intended to depict any particular race, ethnicity, or culture, but are instead creative expressions developed within the fictional world of the work. Furthermore, casting and directional decisions were made without any intent to include, exclude, or discriminate based on race or nationality. So I'm not sure why people, actually I know why people assumed that was the case, because people live their lives based on whether or not they see something as racist, because apparently identity politics are people's entire lives now, where the whole thing becomes their entire personality, where they can't talk about anything else but. And it's the kind of people that you don't want to spend any time with, honestly, because they're infuriating. Trust me. Anyways, so this whole thing has been marred in controversy since. But what I find particularly like infuriating about this whole thing in the first place is the fact that these people try to, for a bunch of people that talk about how much they hate labels and they hate being put in boxes, they continue to go out of their way to try to put anyone and everyone into a box. When a character doesn't fit conventional means of whatever gender it is they might be portraying, they want to assume they're trans. It always goes back to them being trans. This stuff has overtaken people's entire personalities, where they have nothing else about them but this. Nothing else interesting about them but this. Which is incredibly boring. Now, Gachiakuta, like, I've known about this series for a while now because a friend of mine who happens to be trans had recommended I check it out a long time ago, and I told her that I would when I got the chance. But the one thing that she never said to me, the one thing that she never led with when talking about this anime, she never said anything about characters that she was hoping were trans. She didn't talk about the show from a trans lens. She didn't talk about characters she hoped would be trans. She didn't accuse the author of being non-binary. She just said, hey, I read the manga for this. I think it's pretty cool. You should check it out. I said, okay, cool. I'll blow when I get the chance. That was it. She wasn't talking about headcanons, fan cannons, nothing. She just liked the style of the anime and said I'd probably like it too. That's it. But you have these fandoms on the internet that get so obsessed with characters, and I'm sure a lot of them did come over from the My Hero fandom as well, because that shit was rife over there too. People tried to assign sexual identities to characters that had nothing to do with any of that. And then when they get caught in the act, now it's no, it was innocent. No, don't worry about it. It's just an innocent headcanon. It's fine. Don't worry. Don't take it so seriously. Don't take it so seriously up until the point where the author starts getting death threats because it didn't pan out the way that your deranged mind thought things would. It's kind of wild to me. It's one of the big reasons that I've like completely chosen not to get involved with a lot of anime communities in general. Like a lot of the animes that are popular today are animes that I actually like in general, but I have opted a long time ago to not get involved with the communities because they are full of people like this that cannot talk about anything outside of a character's sexual identity. Because, oh, they don't seem to match the conventional means of whatever gender it is, which is, again, wild to me. Just it's strange mental derangement. It kind of pisses me off to an extent because there's shit like that. It just keeps happening. It's insane. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. And then you like even worse that you assume what the author is, and like people are saying that she's probably tired of the Western audience, and I'm not sure if that's the case. Although I wouldn't be surprised if she is at this point, considering how much trouble she's had to deal with coming out of the Western audience. Like you don't see this shit coming out of Japan anywhere near as much. I imagine some of it's there, especially in regards to identity politics, because a lot of this infection has been spreading over there too. It's just not as bad as it is here. So I imagine she has to deal with a lot less of this shit over there. But when she gets online, because from what I understand, she is pretty active on social media, like X, for example, and she reads a lot of the stuff. Obviously, it's her work. She wants to know what people are saying. Like ego searching is kind of very popular in Japan. People will go on the internet, look up stuff that people are saying about them, about their work. And I'm sure she's looking at what people are saying about Gachiakuta as it's premiering as an anime and the whole stage play and all that stuff going on too. So I'm sure she looks it up an awful lot. And because of that, this stuff probably crosses her timeline quite a bit. And as an author, that's got to be infuriating to see people try to take your characters and assign roles to them that you had no intention to have in the first place. That's what it means to hijack something. When you take somebody else's work and then try to make it your own. So they'll keep repeating the lie that the character is transgender over and over again until the lie becomes the only thing associated with that character. You repeat the lie until it becomes truth because you can't get away from it. So no, headcanons are not innocent things anymore. It used to be. When it was done by innocent people. But the people doing it today are anything but. Okay. Before I spend way too much time on this subject, let's go ahead and jump into the last bit of news that I want to talk about today. So over the past couple of years, the whole idea of the industry itself has kind of been marred in, let's just say, a grim look, especially with stuff like the layoffs and studios shutting down, and I'm sure that's going to continue going on into the next year as it hasn't stopped. Game sales being down because either A, the games are not that great, or B, the games are full of identity politics that nobody wants to see, or C, the games are too goddamn expensive. In many cases, it's all of the above. Anybody know what happened to High Guard? They've been very quiet about that ever since the announcement. That's supposed to be out pretty soon. Wonder what happened. But there was an article that came out this week from the creator of a little indie game called Fallen. And he kind of talks about how a lot of the investments that developers that used to get from the industry, a lot of that has basically dried up over the past few years. And he basically says that if you want to get investments from investors and you want to convince them to invest in your project, you kind of have to be willing to talk about AI on top of that. In fact, investors are hoping even now that you have some knowledge or have some idea of what you could potentially do with AI in order to secure investment from these companies. Pull that article up real quick because there's a couple of salient points in that I want to talk about as well. So give me a sec. Here it is. Like that. Do I not have the article up? Anyways. Let me just highlight this section right here. There we go. Okay. This is an article from GameIndustry.biz. It says, Fallen creator Brooke Burgess. Can we get that on the screen, please? Brooke Burgess on the struggle to get game funding above $1 million. It says, every publisher I've talked to has brought up, so you have thought about how AI might be able to save money on this. Go past this paragraph. We're going to start this paragraph here. It says, publishers including Devolver Digital, 11-Bit Studios, have said they're now looking to focus on smaller titles. There's less investment on the line, so you can do things that are a little more outside the box, said Nigel Lowry, co-founder and marketing lead of Devolver, in a recent interview with GameIndustry.biz. There's less risk for both for us and the developer. The underlying trend seems to be publishers investing small amounts of funding in a larger number of micro titles in the hopes that at least one of them will make it Balatro big, other than piling all their cash into a handful of bigger games. It says the majority are going for the scattershot approach, says Rick Burgess, who's seeking $1.5 million for his game Fallen. It says he took part in the open pitch event at DevGam Lisbon in November, which he says went well, but has yet to close a deal. I was approached by a lot of people afterwards. He says plenty of whom offered positive comments, but the overall message was anything above $500,000 was out of the comfort zone of potential investors. So what was the part about AI? I thought I had that highlighted. I have it highlighted now. Son of a bitch. Oh, here we go. Accordingly, in an attempt to reduce the budget, Burgess has earmarked AI for use in localization support and QA, as well as animating some of the Renaissance-style paintings found in Hell. That said, he's far from a true AI believer. I'm not waving the flag of AI by any stretch because I've seen some awful outputs from some of my own work, he says. I would never allow AI to write any dialogue ever. I said it's about getting that budget down to a level potential funders might accept. Burgess reckons that without any AI use, he will be having to ask for $1.8 million rather than $1.5 million. But there are limits to how far he's willing to go. I'm not going to sell my soul and be like, yeah, I'll do it myself. Let me prompt this whole game into existence. No, I want to work with really talented people and make something cool, but if they're integrating it in any way that doesn't affect creativity, but helps save a little bit of money and gets the game out there to people and gives us a chance to make something cool and memorable and then make something else after that. Something I have to factor in. So basically, he's got to factor in AI into his projects because a lot of investors are kind of requiring that developers at least have some sort of idea of what they could potentially use about it. Like it says, his conversation with publishers have routinely returned to a single topic, AI. Every publisher I've talked to has brought up, so have you thought about how AI might be able to save money on this? Almost all of them. They want to know that you're thinking about it, that you understand the potential. So even with all the backlash from like consumers about AI in general, publishers and investors are still wondering whether or not you're considering using AI in some shape or form. And my thing is that with all the backlash out there, you'll get some developers that'll probably shy away from the use of AI, but you're probably going to get a lot of developers out there that'll still use AI, but then never talk about it. Because of the backlash, they'll just keep it under wraps, release the game, and you'll have no idea that AI was used. Especially as the tools get better over time, which they will. And there's a way to potentially save money on this as time goes on. Like there was a recent interview by the CEO of Shift Up, which is the Nikkei and Stellar Blade developer, and he talks about how his studio has to consider using AI as well because it's difficult for them to compete with the basically the large manpower that studios over here in the U.S. and in China have, for example, where they have thousands of developers working on a game, whereas them and the Korean side they have maybe 150 at best. But they have to consider using AI in hopes to compete with a lot of the Western and Chinese studios. But I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I don't think the manpower is the issue because China might have thousands of developers working on a game, but I can guarantee you they're still using AI even with that. Like having played games like Where Winds Meet, for example, which is a popular free-to-play game that they've released over the past few months now. And the game itself is actually pretty decent, but it's very obvious that there's AI use in that game all over the place, whether it's chatting with NPCs or shit, even NPCs that are voiced, for example. Like I noticed one NPC I was talking to that I didn't realize was using AI voiceover until they mispronounced one of the words that they were saying in the dialogue, where they said US instead of us. And I was like, oh shit, this is AI. This is AI. And I had no idea it was until that happened. So I think the idea that AI is, I mean, like obviously AI has kind of had a negative connotation with it, but I imagine there's a lot of studios out there that are just incorporating it into their games right now. And you're going to see a lot of that in the coming years for sure, where studios are just straight up using it and they're going to hide the fact that they're using it. Where you might not have any idea that it was being used. But a lot of this is due in parts of the fact that a lot of the investments have definitely dried up for games as a whole. A lot of that's due to the fact that the COVID era is over and people have less time to play games. People are buying less games because of that. Like I saw one study out there that said that people are these days, especially now, are buying at best 2 games in a year. Maybe even 3 at best. So the amount of games that people buy is slowing down significantly. On top of games not selling, development costs ballooning to no end, and part of that is due to the sheer bloat that a lot of the studios have had, where they hired a bunch of people over the COVID era, and all that shit's not panning out. People giving people jobs that clearly didn't need them, or deserve them, or earn them. Or thanks, Obama. Or or the consultancy firms like a Sweet Baby Inc., for example. And to be fair, like I know a lot of people tend to use the Sweet Baby Inc. thing as the deciding factor, but I want to be clear in saying that I know Sweet Baby Inc. is not the only company out there that does this shit. They were just the first ones out there, proud and loud about the fact that they were doing this. And it doesn't help the fact that a lot of their involvement was in very prolific and highly anticipated games over the past couple of years. In fact, 3 of the games that I was anticipating coming out in 2023, they were involved in: Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, and Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But there are hundreds of firms out there just like Sweet Baby Inc. that do the exact same thing. They're called sensitivity readers, quote unquote, consultancy firms, quote unquote, and they are everywhere. These are companies that are most certainly not needed, but will create problems for you so that you have to hire them to solve. So it's a bunch of money wasted because we didn't really need stuff like that a decade ago, and games were doing just fine back then. It's a case of a lot of red tape. If you want to call it bureaucracy, you can do that too. But it's a lot of that where money's just being funneled into this shit that's not needed. And so with a lot of game sales drying up and too much money being thrown into development of a lot of games, like a lot of publishers now are focusing on smaller projects because you have big successes like Expedition 33, for example, or Balatro, which were some of the best games of the past couple of years. that were on much smaller budgets than a typical AAA title. You'll have an easier time convincing someone to pay $30 for a game than asking someone to pay 80. I know I've said this 1,000 times before, but I was right 5 years ago when I said games going up to $70 or $80 is going to be a problem, because the more you go up in price, the more people are going to expect out of your games. Games are $80 now. People aren't buying them as much. Now, I asked this one question. With games being $80, have you noticed that the quality has increased since before when they were 60 and 70? Have you noticed a difference in quality? Are they better games now because you pay more money for them? Do they feel like better games now that you pay more money for them? Because from what I'm seeing, not really. They're still releasing Broken and Buggy. Wow, I mixed that up. Broken and Buggy as they always have. Half finished. They're still doing the early access shit, right? Where you have to pay an extra amount of money to play the game 3 days early. And I actually had some experience with that, especially when Space Marine 2 was coming out, where they had their whole early access version thing. You had to pay more money for that to get early access. And it turns out the early access version didn't even have the day one update that fixed a lot of the bugs. So sure, you were playing it 3 days early, but you were playing a buggy mess. It's like, why am I paying you extra money to play a broken game 3 days early? So as far as I'm seeing right now, the game industry is retracting, and that's a good thing. I just wish they would get it in their heads that they need to start talking directly to their audience instead of a bunch of middlemen, namely games journalists, who think they have a finger on the pulse of what people want in video games. But the reality is that they're woefully out of touch. Painfully so. And they're never going to get in touch because they don't want the average gamer to be the audience. They want to be the audience. There was a time before the internet where games journalists were important because they were the only means of developers to get an idea of what gamers wanted. That was before the proliferation of social media and the internet. But now, a lot of publishers and developers have a direct line of communication to their user bases to get an idea of what they want. So with games being $70 and I'm only getting 2 per year, I'm going to stop buying consoles because the numbers just don't make sense. We'll play 10 games before the next console comes out. Build a PC at that point. At this point, well, the shit, you might not be able to do that because the PC prices are going up too. The PC prices are getting out of hand too. That's going to be kind of a problem, right? Because the PC price is going to get out of hand because of the RAM shortage, and that's starting to kind of bleed out into other aspects as well, where I imagine consoles are going to suffer for this too, because consoles also have to use RAM. They have to get that hardware from somewhere. It's getting to the point now where even TVs might see an increase in price because of the shortages. So basically, any smart device, console, TV, phones, PCs, whatever it might be, they're probably going to see a significant increase in price because of these shortages. So you really can't escape this shit no matter what you do. It's just everywhere. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. So it's like either you jump in now while the prices are still relatively tame and get whatever it is you're trying to get now, or it's going to be too late to do it. There was a point in time where I thought about upgrading my PC, but I'm like, maybe I'll just stick with what I have for now because, yeah, things aren't looking too good. My PC is okay, and it can play games pretty well for the most part, so I'm not hurting for new hardware. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a problem. And I imagine that it might affect game development on the development side because it's going to be really shitty for developers to try to design games on high-end hardware and then expect people to play those games on high-end hardware when people can't get their hands on said high-end hardware. Oh, you need a 5090 to run this thing at max settings. Like, oh, that's great. Too bad there's no 5090s out there. And the ones that are like damn near $5,000. So I guess we go back outside. Like the only solution is to go back outside and touch grass, guys. I'm sorry. Things are grim right now in the hardware space. Go outside and make some friends. Play the catch ball that I've heard so much about. You know, the part where you throw a ball and you catch it? Yeah, have you played that? You should probably just play the catch ball. No, it's just catch ball. You throw a ball and you catch it. It's a lot of fun. Trust me. Did it before. I've done it before. When I was a kid. So yeah, this whole thing, it kind of affects the industry at large. And whether it's like the retraction of studios, like a lot of studios are shrinking down in sizes and laying people off. A lot of it is like, and the people that are getting laid off are the people that are basically providing no benefit to the studio whatsoever, which is a lot of these sensitivity readers, consultancy firms, whatever it might be. Whether it be it could be woke developers, it might not be woke developers. Like if you're not integral to the team where they need you, then you're going to be gone. And it's even worse because during the time when the pandemic hit and studios were just hiring people like crazy, a lot of people were going into these studios to work on games that they really didn't want to work on. And even more so considering that they were trying to get in there to effectively change the direction of the studio and try to have some influence over whatever games they're working on. And there's kind of an old saying in the job market that says, if you don't work at a widget factory if you don't like making widgets. Because you're not going to go into a widget factory and then tell them to stop making widgets because you don't like it and think you're not going to get fired. You're going to get fired. They're not going to change. They're not going to change making widgets for you because you're not that important. See, was there something else I want to touch on too? I think that might have been it. Oh no. Wait. Hold on. Should I talk about that here? I don't know if I want to talk about that right now. Maybe I'll save that for a different episode. Yeah, I'll save that for a different episode. That might be something I want to dive a bit deeper into, and I think I'll have to. Maybe I'll do like a separate video for that because that's some shit that I gotta formulate my thoughts on completely. Just because I was watching a stream last night that was kind of talking about this too. The whole debate about whether or not, like, oh, you know, a lot of the games that are, you know, they're selling poorly because they might have, you know, the identity politics and racial politics and the woke shit in them, and that's been kind of a problem too. And there's like a debate about whether or not that's had an effect. And in my opinion, it is not, that stuff is not the sole reason why a lot of games fail, but I think it would be naive to assume that it hasn't had an effect. Because a lot of you look at a game like High Guard, for example, or Concord even. Well, we'll use Concord because Concord is a perfect example of this. Concord, how's it going, Charcoal Wolf? Concord was a case of the game looking incredibly generic, from the gameplay to the character designs, and people being like, "Nah, man, this ain't it. I don't care about this game whatsoever." And like that was very clear from the very first trailer of that game. People just did not care. And then as time went on, the character designs kind of became the running joke because that indeed was a massive factor that contributed to it. Was it the sole reason the game failed? No, but it contributed in a large way. And the reason why that is the case is because you get designs like that from people that already have a mindset of identity politics from the get-go. So you'll end up with characters that are basically run through the filter of identity politics. So you'll have female characters that look very androgynous, milquetoast, boring, nothing interesting about them outside of the fact that this character is non-binary. They use they them pronouns. So what? Who fucking cares? There's nothing about this character's design that makes me say, hey, I want to know more. Why does this character look like that? What's going on? It's like running. It's like if you were to take DBZ, for example, and then run it through the PBS filter, which is like the fucking TV channel with like Sesame Street and Barney and stuff like that. If you were to take DBZ and then run it through that filter, do you think it would come out the same? Do you think it would be the same show? Absolutely not. And that's kind of what's going on with a lot of like character designs these days, especially in the case of Concord. It's a case of character designs that was run through the, people call it the DEI filter. I guess you can call it that. It's running through the DEI or the woke filter. You don't have any characters with any interesting designs because people are too afraid to be out there with their designs. You can't have any character. You can't have female characters that look sexually suggestive or attractive. That's too much because somebody might get offended by that. You try to run characters through the whole body positivity thing, so you have a bunch of fat characters there. And I hate to break it to you, nobody wants to play as a fat person. I'm sorry. You might not like that, but no one wants to play as a fat character. Even fat people don't want to play as fat characters. Surprised that they shut it down after a month. I'm really not. I'm not surprised at all. Like the backlash about that was very loud. It's like you met Roadhog. Roadhog was different because he kind of laid into the fact that he was a fat character. They called him a tank. And shit, even Overwatch has kind of lost its reach these days. Considering that, it was funny because like Overwatch was also kind of leaning into the whole like let's run our characters to the diversity DEI filter, and that shit was not catching on. And then Marvel Rivals comes out like a year or so later, and for one, it's got the Marvel IP attached to it, so that's enough to get people interested. But on top of that, when people were talking about that game, they were talking about the female characters. They were talking about the female characters. Like they leaned in, especially to Emma Frost. Like one of her purchasable costumes. That shit is like, whoa, this costume is allowed in a rated teen game? Really? Like one of my friends, who's been trying to get me to play Marvel Rivals like every Thanksgiving. He keeps asking me to play it. I might end up doing it one of these things. He keeps asking me to play it. But one of my friends and he happens to be gay, he plays the game. And he was talking about Emma Frost. And he was like, yeah, I play Emma Frost a lot. He was like, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, about that one costume of hers they put in the game. He was like, yeah, I know that one costume with her, basically with her tits hanging out pretty much. And he was like, why'd they put that costume in the game? I said, you know why they put that costume in the game. I said, you say that, but I'm sure you bought that costume, didn't you? He was like, yep, I sure did. So even though he was trying to be funny, complaining about the costume, he still bought it because he liked it. Why did they make me buy this costume? God, why? X Kelly says Concord had intestinal motifs on the armor among the repulsive traits. Yeah, like the character designs were terrible all the way through. Like there was nothing attractive about that game at all. The characters, the designs, all of it. Like there's nothing that made you want to ask questions. You were kind of repulsed by it because it was hideous. Like, I hate to break it to you, but the look of your game can also sell your game too. And if it looks like garbage, no one's going to want to play it. It goes back to the whole restaurant analogy, right? You can have the best chefs in the world, but if you don't have a hook to get people in the front door, then who the fuck cares? But you also have the inverse of that too, where you can have an attractive hook to get people through the door. But if your food is trash, word of mouth is going to spread, and people are not going to go to your restaurant because of that, because your food sucks. But if you can't get people in the door to try your food, if it's really good, then it doesn't matter. It's kind of true, like the case on YouTube as well, where like a lot of content creators will find that you can make like an amazing video with really good edits, professional edits, all that fun stuff. But if you don't have a thumbnail or a title to get people to click on the video and watch it, then it won't matter. I've come across a lot of really great videos that have very low view counts because their thumbnails just suck. And I'm still trying to figure that shit out myself as a smaller content creator. So it's not to say that I'm a pro at it myself, but I have come to the understanding that if you do not have an attractive thumbnail and a title for your videos, no one's going to click on it because it doesn't matter. If you can't get people to watch it, then all that work you put into it is for nothing. Which is why you see a lot of titles out there for videos with a lot of clickbaity shit, because you might complain about the clickbait, but I'm sure you clicked on quite a few videos with some rather incendiary titles. I'm sure you've seen many a video that got you to click on it because of that alone. Only two. Don't you lie to me, DJ. Don't you lie to me, boy. Don't you lie to me, boy. You have planned to do a top 10 games you look forward to in 2026? I would if I had 10 games I was looking forward to. No, that's being mean. That's being mean. That's being mean. That's being mean. There's a few games looking forward to that are coming out this year. I do want to check out Pragmata, Resident Evil 9, obviously. I'm probably going to check out what's it called? No Rest for the Wicked. That's coming out of early access next week, and I do want to check that out. That's an indie game that I'm pretty excited about. I actually own it in early access, but I'm refusing to play it because I just want to play the finished version. Plus, it was cheaper in early access, but it's coming out into official release next week, and I want to check that out too. So that's another one on my list. That's 3 already, right? I do want to check out Arknight's Enfield, which is the free-to-play gacha game that's also out next week. I think Ananta will be out this year, potentially. I mean, well, whatever. I was gonna say it better come out before GTA 6 does, but considering GTA 6 got delayed again, I don't think they have to worry about that too much. But yeah, no, there's a few games I'm looking forward to coming out this year that I do want to play. Some of them are AAA titles, and a lot of them are not. It's just that AAA titles in general are just way too expensive and not worth the price of admission. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that now. Like if Death Stranding 2 was announced to be coming out to PC this year, I'd probably pick that up as well. I'm still waiting for the PC version of that. But yeah, the whole like the attractive characters, the DEI, the woke shit, there's definitely truth to it. And the unfortunate part is that, and this is very nefarious when it comes to the developer side of things. It's where you have developers that'll write that off as like not a big deal. Like, oh, they're just talking about the whole woke shit. It's just a bunch of racist bigots, blah, blah, blah. There's no effect on our games. They'll dismiss it that way and say that it has no effect on sales up until a game fails and doesn't sell well. And then suddenly it's and then suddenly it's all the fault of the woke, the bigots, the Nazis, the homophobes. Like, I thought you said they didn't have an effect on sales. But now that your game failed, suddenly they do? And I understand the argument there that, like, that stuff can also be a means for them to use it as a scapegoat to avoid accountability for their game failing in the first place. And that's definitely true. It's the what is it? The Simpsons meme. Principal Skinner being like, "Oh, I'm not the one who's out of touch. It's the world that's out of touch. It's not my fault. It's everyone else's." So you end up getting these people that don't learn the lessons and just repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And a fine example of, and they tend to equate it to just, just a bunch of bigots not caring about whatever it is they're making, and that attractive female characters and stuff like that don't sell. Right up until you get the announcement of the Tomb Raider remake that happened at the Game Awards, where the character Lara Croft herself looks, I've said it before, she's like conventionally attractive. Like, she's not a supermodel. She is conventionally attractive. And just that alone caused some people to melt the fuck down. It was crazy how some people reacted to that. People got mad at the fact that she was attractive. And it wasn't me who was wrong. It was the world. So there's been like a concerted effort to try to stop like female characters from being attractive because they keep equating it to being like, oh, you just want a goon to the character. It's like, homie, I've seen dudes goon to ugly bitches too. So what's your point? Like, I hate to want to say it like that. I've seen dudes goon to ugly bitches too. So what do you mean? Like, if people want a goon, they're gonna find a way to goon. You can't stop them. If you think that not wanting to make a character look attractive is gonna stop that, then you're a fool. You are an absolute fool. And then what was it? They attacked that the CEO of CI Games, who's making the sequel to Lords of the Fallen. And it was really bizarre how that happened, too. Like just like the fucking tactics they took when they did that. It was like he was answering questions online on Twitter to fans that were asking about the game, and one user asked him, he was like, "Oh, do you guys intend to have female characters in skimpy outfits in the game?" And he replied, "Yes." One word, yes. And it was mainly the game's journalists. They had a fucking meltdown over that. Just shut up about your game. Just release the game already. Just shut up about it. It's like, homie, he was just answering a question from a fan online. What do you mean? Like, why are you getting so mad about that? And even worse, like when the backtrack for the censorship for Brown Dust 2 hit this week, there were a few articles out there getting upset that the developers backtracked on the censorship. How are you going to get mad that the Gooner game decides it still wants to be a Gooner game? It is crazy. But again, like these are the people that run the industry. Like, when games get made, they're being run through these people as the filter. No one can express creatively anymore. Nobody can enjoy any of that at all because you're not allowed to. Creative expression is only used for them and no one else. Like I said before, they don't want you to be the audience. They want to be the audience themselves. When Dragon Age Veilguard came out, in towards the end of 2024. That game got so much praise for being amazing. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, this game is so good! It's the height of BioWare for doing this shit." I forgot there was like a one term that they kept using, and it was weird because every review kept using that exact same term in their reviews. I forgot what it was, but it was very suspicious when that happened. But they praised that game to no end, and I played it. Like I played it on stream for a little while, and I was like, "Yo, this game is kind of boring. This game's combat is kind of boring." I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't like the style. I don't like the characters, and the combat is kind of boring. So I ended up dropping it and never finished it because I was done with it. And I was very confused on where all the praise was coming from. But it turns out a significant portion of the reviewers that reviewed the game were all people that fell within the same identity politics ideology. Raku says, I was asking while you were playing if you liked the combat. Yeah. I was like, eh. I wasn't going to outright say his ass while you were streaming. Listen, if you did, I would have been like, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. I've been like, you ain't wrong. But yeah, it was very boring. And turns out majority of the reviews are coming from people that fit within the same identity politics. And it's like, these are the people they're making games for. They don't want you to be the audience. They want to be the audience themselves. It is, and I said it before and I'll say it again, it is activists making games for other activists. The thing now is a lot of investors and publishers are catching on to this as one of the reasons why they're losing so much money. And now they're starting to withhold funds. Because the reality is that these activists, they're not buying games. These reviewers, they're not buying games. They're getting free codes and they're reviewing your game, and that's it. And they'll give your game a glowing review so long as they continue to get free shit from you, the developer and publisher. It's a synergistic relationship, one that means you lose money and they get everything. Meanwhile, the people that actually play these games and actually give a shit about them, they get screwed over because these games end up being nothing of what they were hoping for. There's a reason why that first Dragon Age Veilguard trailer got disliked into oblivion. People were like, yo, this shit does not look like Dragon Age. Turns out it also wasn't. And when the person got on there, like when it was doing the previews, and that one person got on there talking about how they were so proud of the fact that the game included fucking top surgery scars. I'm thinking to myself, who the fuck cares about top surgery scars in it? Like, I imagine people who do have top surgery scars would rather them not be seen. Why the fuck would you want that on your character in a video game? I think my first reaction was to see them looking like the bad Sims characters that kind of did. And to be fair, I think it was what was it? Wasn't the lead writer? It was, because the game was already, well, it might have been the lead writer, or at least one of the lead writers. Turns out one of the developers on that game did in fact work on The Sims, which is probably why it looked the way it did, right? Which might have been why it looked the way it did. Like, to be fair, the character creator itself was actually pretty in depth, all things considered, in the way that The Sims kind of is, but for all the wrong reasons. You got to represent everybody. Apparently, It's a weird, like, I don't. It goes back to the whole thing I said about mental illness kind of being an epidemic. It is an epidemic. Like, it's everywhere. Where you've built your entire identity up on this idea that everybody needs to see you as exhibit A, B, or C. You keep talking about how you don't want to be put into a box, but then you constantly put everyone else into a box. When talking about the Gachiakuta character, Tomsy, for example, where they tried to attach an identity to the character that the character very much isn't, to the point where the author had to come out and say, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, oh, this character's trans. She was like, what? Since when? Oh, the author's non-binary. What? Since when? People are so caught up in identity politics where they have made it their entire personality. And that is a problem. Where it's the only thing they want to talk about, the only thing they do talk about when it comes to engaging on the internet. Where when you scroll down there to social media feeds, it's just more of that shit. Shipping characters. Characters are coming out and identifying as X, Y, and Z. It's all that. People treating mental illness like it's some kind of fad that you have to wear like a badge of honor. Oh, I'm autistic. I'm depressed. I'm bipolar. Please give me sympathy. Please make characters like me. Like, what if we don't say we did? And then they try to project that onto already existing stories and characters that are already established. Not because the characters are these things, but they're hoping that if they keep pushing the lie over and over again, the lie will be the only thing that exists, to the point where it has to be true because it's the only thing people talk about. If you push the lie enough to the point where it becomes the only part of the discussion, then it becomes the truth. That's what I mean by hijacking something. And what was weird to me is that, like, when she said, let me go back to that tweet again. Hold on. When she said that in her tweet, like, her response to it was kind of weird. Her response, like, again, this comes from people like basically translating what she said into English, and I bet they used AI translation on top of that. So take the translation itself with a grain of salt. Because it might not be entirely accurate. But her statement of, they're saying things like Tamsy's transgender, and I don't think that's the case at all. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, you don't think? Like, ma'am, you're the author. What do you mean you don't think? You should know. They're your characters. What do you mean you don't think? So I don't know if that was a translation error or not, but it is a little weird to come out and be like, I don't think that's the case. Like, you're the author. What do you mean you don't think? You're the one who made the character. Like, is that you playing both sides so you could change your mind in the future or something? Maybe. But I don't know if she'll do that, considering people are also accusing her of being non-binary. Like, that would annoy the hell out of me. And some people tried to assign that to her because of the fact that her name is like kind of genderless, without realizing that a lot of authors will try to do stuff like that as an alias to make it harder for people to identify them. And with good reason, because like I mentioned earlier, people will make these headcanons about characters being whatever they want them to be in their mind, or shipping that they've made up in their mind, and what used to be an innocent thing amongst fandoms goes from fandoms and innocent to demanding the author make it a reality. And if they don't, that's when death threats start happening. It's innocent up until it's not. And the only way it can be innocent is when it's done by innocent people, which the people pushing shit like this are absolutely not that. Shit is crazy. Anyways, that's enough of my ranting for the day. I gotta get out of here because this went on far longer than I intended it to. But thank you all for tuning in. For those of you who might have missed it, obviously this thing's gonna be up on YouTube, so you can catch it from the beginning and check out the stuff that you might have missed from the beginning. Check that out all there. If you're watching it on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe if you made it this far into the video and you actually enjoyed my ramblings about how much I hate everybody and everything. There's one thing I always thought when I was younger is that as I get older, I was like, I'll probably just hate everybody when I get older. Turns out I started hating everybody when I was younger, and nothing has changed. And nothing has changed as I got older. Okay, write that down, cross that off. I'm about to get a new notebook here for my notes, because this shit is just getting down to the last few pages here. I didn't realize I would fly through this notebook as fast as I did. I have to buy a new one as I get back into doing this whole podcasting thing again. I think that was it, right? Yeah, that was all the articles I had for now. Yeah, good. Okay, let's go to the outro and get out of here. DJ says, wait. Says, joke's on you. I started early and people just continually disappoint me. That's, like I said, I started hating people when I was young. It's like, call me what you want, but I hate everybody equally. My hate knows no discrimination. I gotta get out of here. I'm clouding out too. I gotta get out of here. Like I said, thank you all for watching, folks. I will see you all next week for another episode. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do like short, like news segments throughout the day on YouTube and stuff like that. But I gotta figure out the method of how to make that happen and get over my perfectionist ways that keeps me from doing it. One of these days I'll get past that, but we'll see how it goes. Social media links are in the banners below if you're watching on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find those in the description. Like I mentioned earlier, don't forget to like the video if you're watching on YouTube if you haven't done so already. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe if you made it this far into it and you enjoyed my ramblings. I'm gonna try to get back to doing these weekly again, like I did last year. And I'll just keep trying to refine this shit as I go. It's gonna take time, but I'll get there. Don't worry. I promise I'll get there. Until next week, or rather my next stream, which will probably be on Monday. You guys have a wonderful day or night, depending where you are in the world. You all stay classy, stay sharp. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. You guys have a good one. Love you all. I am out of here. Deuces. And fade to black.